The Timeline is a Blue Wire podcast. Timeline of Phoenix Suns podcast. My name is Mike. I'm here with Sam. Sam, how's it going?
It's going pretty well. A few miles away from me, Buffalo is buried under about 6 feet of snow, but I am untouched over here. So things things are going great. No, I'm exaggerating. It wasn't actually 6 feet. It was 3 feet though, which is bad.
I don't actually understand snow. I mean, I would have believed you. I would have just believed you.
It was like 3 feet. You know, they moved the Bills game to Detroit today and everything. I'm sure you heard about that or saw that.
I did not.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, for some reason, there's an outdoor stadium in Buffalo for football. It's an
affront to God himself.
Yeah.
We're recording this basically a little bit after the Knicks-Suns game where the Suns defeated the Knicks 116-95. The starters, or most of them, didn't even play basically the entire fourth quarter. And my main question is, are you sure you still like Julius Randle?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I am
9 points in this game. Not very good.
He was dog shit. I am unfazed, however. let me explain why. So what's the full? I've got the box score here. Yeah, 9 points.
4 for 11.
9 points on 4 for 11. 6 rebounds, 2 assists, 3 turnovers.
0 free throws.
You know what's wonderful about the Julius Randle story as it relates to me, Mike, is I feel like I can play this both ways. So if he was great tonight, I could have said, look at how motivated Julius Randle is. He really wants to show out against James Jones, and he wants to be in Phoenix. Instead, the opposite happened, and I feel like it could just as easily be explained by look at poor Julius Randle on the New York Knicks. Because the thing is, there are plenty of other scapegoats on this Knicks team. It's not just about Julius Randle, mind you. Where was RJ Barrett tonight? Where has RJ Barrett been this season? You know, Julius Randle, this could easily be interpreted as a cry for help as well. So, I don't know. It doesn't necessarily take me out of the Julius Randle sweepstakes. No, I'm not going to go that far.
He looks really bad. One thing I'll say about Julius Randle, a lot of people were attacking him for his defense. I want to just give one note on Thibodeau and the Knicks. That sort of pre-rotation thing where you're helping way off the corners if the screener is up high, that's a Thibodeau thing. You know, that's what won. It's a 2008 Thibodeau thing, right? That's what won the Celtics their championship. That when the rules changed, they just played that sort of zone defense where everyone was required to protect the rim at all times. And it does make Randle look worse than he is in some ways. I think that his defense could be better, but like just sort of leaving your man in the corner and hanging out in the paint off the ball, leaving that wide open corner three, that's partially on Tom Thibodeau, I think. They just rotate a little bit too much. Let's talk about the Suns in this game, though, because they were just great. And it was nice because, you know, playback curse and all, they lost the previous game.
We fell to 0-3 on playback last Friday. Yeah. Thanks to everyone who joined again.
Yeah. They lost the game against the Jazz and come in and they just washed the Knicks. And the game was relatively close the entirety of the first half. The Suns did feel in control that entire time. Then the third quarter happened and Devin Booker was just amazing throughout that quarter, and the Suns really took control in the third. Like I said, they basically didn't even play. Devin Booker didn't play the entirety of the fourth quarter. Neither did basically Torrey Craig or DeAndre Ayton. Cameron Payne and I guess who else was in there? Cameron Payne and Mikal Bridges played a little bit in the fourth quarter. And
Mikal Bridges played a little bit. Mikal Bridges is always going to log the most minutes out of any Sun, no matter what happens in the game. But that being said, it was still good to see a game where the Suns can win in this fashion, so that Mikal Bridges finished with 33 minutes, which for a normal player is like a perfectly normal, reasonable amount of minutes. But for Mikal Bridges recently, who's been logging 42, 43 minutes in a lot of these games, 33 looks pretty good. And Devin Booker as well, of course, I have to mention, with 30 minutes tonight. I thought that was really, really important. I was happy to just see him get a little bit of rest.
This is one of those like average buster blowouts, because there are certain kinds of blowouts where you just like score 30 points in 3 quarters and then you get to sit and it helps your averages. In this game, Devin Booker 20 points, but they just absolutely blew them out in the third quarter. They made a ton of 3-pointers, 17 for 39 as a team, and no Suns scorer had more than 21 points in this game. And the guy who had 21 points was Cameron Payne, who once again had another great game, 21 points, 9 assists, only 2 turnovers, had 2 blocks in this game, and only 1 foul, which I think is huge for Cameron Payne, just being able to stay on the floor, and 7 rebounds, the third Suns player in as many games to be on triple-double watch. And Cameron Payne was just great in this game, and I just wanted to spend a little time talking about him because it's almost hard to comprehend after last season that he comes into this season and plays as well as he has so far, in particular in a starting role. Last year, we mentioned it before, he was still good when he started, but struggled a little off the bench. This year, he was good off the bench. Chris Paul went out for an undetermined amount of time, and he comes in and he's like almost playing at an all-star level as a starter so far this season.
Yeah, I don't have the updated stats based on today, but at least I know before he was averaging 20 points and 6 assists like through his first 4 games after the Chris Paul injury, and that was with good shooting efficiency, like a good true shooting percentage, really good assist to turnover ratio. And then, you add games like tonight, 21, 7, and 9, 2 turnovers, another 40% night from the 3-point line. He's killing it, man. I mean, this is a guy who averaged 4 points and 2 assists per game in the playoffs. Literally played himself out of the rotation. I know everyone knows this already, but just to kind of hammer it home, it's pretty weird that here we are 5 months later, and we're basically all universally back on the Cameron Payne train, and it's all a credit to him. It's all a matter of his own hard work and effort. And a little bit also, of course, opportunity from, seizing the minutes that came when Chris Paul went down.
The conversation about him from the guys who talked to him preseason was all about the amount of film that he was watching and how he picked up on a lot of the mistakes that he was making last season and how he felt relatively confident coming in to this season. And I think you can see that work is paying off for him and for the Suns, of course, because he has been playing out of his mind in just even thinking about his 3-point shot. Last year, I think that was a big struggle for him. In the previous season, when the Suns, in the non-64 win season, he shot really well. I think he was over 40% from 3. A couple Suns players were that year. Last year, he struggled from 3. Right now, as a starter, 20 points per game. I just looked it up with the most recent stats, including today's game on the NBA's website. 20 points per game. And from 3, he's shooting 45% from 3 as a starter. He also has 6.3 assists to 2.2 turnovers and is just insanely efficient in that time. And for the Suns to have Chris Paul go down, I think this was probably one of those nightmare scenarios that we talked about before the season. And he went down, and Cameron Payne is just picking up all the slack. I mean, really, he's scoring a lot more than Chris Paul was, which helps the Suns a lot because, well, you're missing his scoring off the bench. You kind of need him to be a lot as a starter, and he has been in this season so far.
Yeah, and in particular, Devin Booker needs him to be a lot as a pressure release valve in the offense, as just a secondary scorer, because he's not sure. Unfortunately, sometimes he can, but is not always sure if he can count on Mikal Bridges or DeAndre Ayton to be that second guy, at least not night to night. Of course, in some games, those 2 guys have stepped up, but mostly it's been Cam. And to your point, Chris Paul, his season high this year is 16 points in the 10 games he played or whatever. campaign, in the 6 games that he's started since the Chris Paul injury, he scored above 16 points 5 times. He scored above 20 points 4 times. Tonight was the 4th. So he is blowing Chris Paul's scoring records, if you will, his season scoring records, out of the water right now. And yeah, absolutely, it's super needed for the Suns offense.
Really impressive for him to just play as well as he has been. In that time, he's basically one of the best point guards in the NBA. And that's, I don't know how sustainable it is for him to be that good, but it's happening right now. And I'm looking forward to watching him basically every game. He's chaotic. He's chaotic good, if we had to figure out what he is, because offensively he's kind of chaotic. Defensively he's kind of chaotic, but doesn't turn the ball over a lot, and that's just what the Suns kind of need. It is kind of amazing in and out of the Suns lineup. Different players play every night. Even in this game, Jock Landale didn't play a single minute. Looked fine. I didn't see anything on the injury report. Bismack Biyombo comes in and plays, and the Suns just still get a ton of assists, low turnovers, and score a ton of points, and they do it time and time again. Teams are going to beat them.
I thought that was weird
as they're
too,
injured.
By the way,
yeah,
the Jock,
Jock Landale not playing,
the Jock decision. Of course, like certain times a year, the first thing your mind goes to is, trade candidate. But it's too early. Like the Suns literally cannot trade Jock Landale. They've only had him for however many days. It's less than 90. So yeah, I don't know. I guess it was just about getting Bismack a look. But watching Bismack is like becoming one of life's finest pleasures for me at this point, at least watching him on defense. Like I thought he was awesome tonight. So his rim protection again was basically flawless. So I have no arguments against that particular substitution tonight.
He was great.
I just thought it was interesting, right? Like they still haven't really settled. We got Ish Wainwright minutes as well. They still haven't really settled on a solid 5-man second unit, like a consistent 5-man second unit, which is, realistically is the way to play around with things at this point in the year. But that's where we are.
It's just, Biyombo earns minutes every time he plays too. So it's not something that I would get. Jock Landale's been good. I mean, he has been good. And I think he was particularly good against the Warriors, maybe struggled a little bit against the Jazz, but like Biyombo deserves minutes. He's a player that deserves minutes in the NBA, and he fills his role really well with the Suns. So it was actually really nice to see him for a stretch of games. It reminded me of that stretch he played last season where he just sort of came out of nowhere and was amazing for a good 30, 40 games to close the season. And now he's back tonight.
Ish Wainwright, by the way, just for his part, played 20 minutes tonight. Only was 1 for 8, 1 for 6 from the 3-point line.
Letting it fly, yeah.
Which I like.
You got to shoot. He's Jay Crowder, basically.
Yep. We've always said with Ish, the development plan, sit in that corner, become PJ Tucker. And he mostly shoots in the corner, but he will even sometimes shoot from above the break. He's better in the corner. Anyway, my point is, did not shoot the ball well tonight, only had 3 points. Still finished as a team high plus 17 for what it's worth. So shout out Ish Wainwright.
He really was team high plus 17.
He was team high plus 17. Yep.
Yeah, Julius Randle for a few plays in a row was like, I'm going to go at this guy. And then just passed out of it because he tried to move Ish Wainwright, and you can't.
There was someone...
nobody can.
There was someone else, I think it was Jericho Sims, who's like the backup center on the Knicks, who's probably 250 pounds. I'm not going to look it up right now, but just tried to move him and could not move him. And it's like remarkable to watch it. Like if Ish provides nothing else on a basketball court in a particular night, if he shoots like crap, at least that he will be the immovable object and you will be entertained by it for a number of possessions on defense.
Let's talk about DeAndre Ayton as well, because Ayton had, I think, some interesting games today. I think if you look at the box score, 13 points, 11 rebounds, nothing to really get overly excited about box score wise, but 4 offensive rebounds is huge. I think that's the kind of thing that you need from DeAndre Ayton, and it's nice to see him battling on the offensive boards. And I think when you look at the assist numbers he had in the last 2 games, which he had a career high, I think 8 assists in the game against the Jazz and the loss against the Jazz, and then 4 assists in this game. So those assists, he gets quite a few from offensive rebounds. Catches it on the offensive board, passes it out to a shooter, which is technically, by the way, in years past, the most efficient shot in the NBA for whatever reason. Threes taken off of offensive rebounds. It's one of the most efficient things you can do. So those assists come from that. Somebody asked in the Discord about what this is coming from. Have the Suns changed anything for DeAndre and to be getting more assists? And I think there is a little bit that is a change, but I think the offensive rebounds is part of it. What do you think is the difference for Ayton in these two games to get more assists?
No, it's exactly what you were saying. It's more offensive rebounds. And I mean, it's not entirely that because it's a combination of things, right? So partially offensive rebounds.
Yeah, I agree. Mm-hmm.
Partially offensive rebounds. Partially like typical flow of the offense stuff, but not quite. I have to watch my words here as is typical with talking about DeAndre Ayton. There's a certain lack of confidence in his own offensive game that I think I have noticed as of late, which is not always a negative thing because I think he's
passing out of shots. Is that what you're saying?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, yeah.
Okay.
Like,
you can say that.
Let's not dance around the subject. There are certain possessions where Ayton is like kind of turning that energy that otherwise could be used towards him taking his own shot into passing out of shots and just trying to find guys more. But the reason I'm not complaining about it is because he turned those into assists. Points are points. Essentially that. I mean,
there's offensive rebounds. There's him getting the ball at the rim, and there's this other defender, so he's passing out to shooters. Right, those are often how he gets his assists. The two other things I want to mention is when Devin Booker's trapped and the Suns are playing 4-on-3. He's catching it in the middle of the floor, making a few passes to shooters in those scenarios. That's probably over the last two games, 2 or 3 of his assists, right? It's not a ton of them, but there has been a few.
Yeah.
And then the last thing I want to give him credit for, because this is something I've killed him for in the past, he's had a few nice passes to cutters, Torrey Craig in particular. And I think, when he's in the post and he posts up, and they're quick posts, right? They're not him dribbling, pounding it for 10 seconds at a time. They're just quick post-ups and then a cut. He's had a few nice bounce passes to cutters, and I think those in particular, those passes to cutters are where he can make the biggest difference, because if they're going to try to close out on him or if everyone's going to turn and look at him, then guys like Torrey Craig and Mikal Bridges can cut off of those post-ups, and those are not difficult passes to make. He can make the bounce pass. He can pass it over guys. I think the ones from the outside he's still going to struggle with, but the ones where he's posting up relatively close to the rim and just sort of bouncing it to the cutter right at the rim, I think he can make those passes, and I think those in particular are kind of new for him, and I'd like to see more of it. And I just want to point out, too, in those games, like they're not feeding him in the corner, everyone leaving that side of the court, and then he's finding guys like Joel Embiid or Nikola Jokic.
That will never. That's never going to happen.
But I think it's important to note, like the assists are coming out of, just like you said, regular flow of the Suns' offense and his familiarity with where guys are going to be, and regular pick and rolls or whatever it comes out of.
But even if
not
it's
feeding him,
right? But even if it seems like we talk about standard flow of the offense and whatever, not to normalize it too much, because if it means that he's sitting in that spot in the middle of the floor and is seeing those correct angles, as you were saying, particularly to cutters, it's still a good thing. It deserves to be praised. I have a question for you philosophically about the offensive rebound thing. Do you like the fact that he's passing out of offensive rebounds to shooters like consistently to reset the shot clock? Or would you rather, and I ask this because this is something I've seen other people argue about, would you rather just see him go straight up and try and assert himself and take that as an opportunity to create his own offense?
I just don't think he's going to do that. I think, I guess I've resigned myself into being okay with him passing out to shooters. I don't mind it. I don't mind the passes out to shooters sometimes. I think that's often the right play to make. I don't think it's always a bad thing for him to not put it back up. But I just don't have a lot of faith in him to go right back up with it. You just haven't seen a lot of from that. Yeah. Even when he's great, that's just not really been part of his game.
I guess I've thought about it too. And I think a big thing is if you're gonna go up for it, you need to find a way to turn that. Ultimately, you're trying to optimize it as a possession, right? How can we make it the most efficient? Which means after you bring the ball down, or ideally you're not bringing the ball down, but after you get a rebound, you know that there are defenders in the vicinity. You need to be in a position where you're pushing yourself through contact and embracing contact as much as possible. If you do the thing that Ayton often does, where you bring the ball down and you stop to think, and then you take your pivot foot and you turn around and fade away for a jump shot, that's the worst possible way that you could try to assert your offense in that situation. And so I think, what we're basically agreeing on is, if Ayton's going to turn around for a jump shot after he gets the offensive rebound, of course we would rather have him just pass out and get just about any other shot besides that. But if he's going to immediately go up with it and dunk it, or it doesn't even have to be a dunk, just a hard finish through contact,
or
that's
even
great.
like a putback, like all in one jump.
Right, that's great.
I think on a grander point, there are players who thrive in chaos. Steph Curry is like one of the best examples. Klay Thompson when he was good.
Josh Jackson.
That whole Warriors team to some extent. Chris Paul is another player that thrives in chaos, and you just make these quick decisions based on entirely on feel. Devin Booker has times where he's good at it, has times where he's bad at it. DeAndre Ayton's not really a player that thrives in chaos. And sometimes on offensive rebounds, it gets a little chaotic under there. And for him to just get rid of the ball, it's not always a bad scenario for the Suns, because then they can reset, go back into what they're good at, which is being this sort of technical machine that grinds away. And, it's just from a chaotic standpoint, it's kind of okay for me. And you can sort of read that however you want. If that's an indictment on him, that's fine if you want to think of it as that. But, for the Suns, I think it's fine as long as they maintain possession of the ball.
Yeah.
Because usually they are able to create a good shot out of that.
At the end of the day, more possessions are good, and you should be happy if you have good offensive rebounders on your basketball team. Look at the Chicago Bulls, not the current Chicago Bulls, the 90s Chicago Bulls, who three-peated on a guy who absolutely could not create his own offense after a putback, but they sure were happy to have him on the floor, creating as many extra offensive rebounds as possible and just passing it back out to their two-star players, right? There's Dennis Rodman, of course, I'm talking about, in case anyone hasn't caught it by now. So, there are plenty of cases in NBA history. Just to say that I'm not sure there's any particular right answer to that question, but I wanted to bring it up because I know people are always going to get on DA about being more confident, being more aggressive. Yeah. And look, guys, I don't know. It's year 5. We'll see.
I think, too, for Ayton, I mentioned that I thought he had a really good game in this game against the Knicks in the first 3 quarters that he did play. And even people were like, I don't think so. His first half was bad. And I understand what they meant. I think there was some level of lack of focus in certain areas of his game in the first half. But like when the focus on the boards is there, because I think he had 8 rebounds in the first half of this game. When the focus on the rebounds is there for DeAndre, and it just, everything kind of works pretty well when he's on the floor. The Knicks still were in it in that first half. And then I think he came out in the second half and still played relatively well. Look, I'll say this. I think that even when Ayton has been good for this season, it's like 5-6 minute stretches. We still haven't seen like extended periods of time where he's been really great. And we're still waiting on that. I think as fans and people who analyze the game, we still want that out of him. So I think it's fair if you think that wasn't a great game for him. But I think there were stretches of the game where I think he was pretty good, and I think that it's slowly but surely getting a little bit better for him. And if he continues to be really good at the little things, I think the Suns will benefit from that more than anything else. Anyone else you want to talk about from that game in particular?
The Knicks game?
Yeah.
Let me go down
Torrey
the list
Craig,
real quick.
Another good game.
Torrey Craig
keeps being pretty good.
Yep. Mikal Bridges
Still
had
making every shot.
Mikal Bridges had a very Mikal Bridges game. I don't think there was anything to cover there.
He's really taunting the away. I think we can say that. He's really taunting the away bench every time there's somebody from Villanova on it. When he hits a 3 in front of it, people thought he was taunting Klay, which maybe he was.
He was taunting.
Warriors game.
He was taunting Ty Jerome.
I think it was Ty
But
Jerome.
you know
he
what?
has former teammates, Villanova guys. He likes to fuck with them.
In that case, and maybe it'll come back to bite us. I don't know. I was just as happy to have people think that he was taunting Clay, because in my mind the feelings.
I didn't correct anyone.
I didn't correct anyone either. That's what I'm saying. In my
It would have
mind-
just been that meme of that guy standing in the corner of the party where it's like they don't know he's taunting Ty Jerome.
Yeah, pretty much.
That would have been us. Yeah.
I mean, Clay deserves it. In my mind, it was like, well, Clay deserves to be taunted, regardless if he was the actual recipient or not. I don't care. I'm just gonna pretend that was done in the direction of Klay Thompson, and it was a fun time. How about Have we talked about Damian Lee on the main feed?
I'm not sure.
Did we talk about him on the Patreon the other day? But I'm not sure we talked about him on the main feed. He's been good.
He's been unbelievable.
And he's shooting 100% from 3 in the fourth quarter. That's not an actual...
Except for the game-winning attempt or the game-tying attempt where he tried to get fouled inexplicably.
That's a good point. Yeah, that's not an actual stat that I looked up, in case people are wondering. But it feels like he's shooting 100% from the fourth quarter. In fact, I can look it up right now. I'm sure
Yeah,
it's
I was
pretty
just
high.
going to do it. I'll let you do it. I think the thing about Damian Lee, I'll just say, is that he just plays really smart basketball. He's kind of an irritant a little bit, which I didn't really anticipate. Like, he'll flop on guys and get in their heads a little bit. He'll do a little bit of taunting. He's also the guy that will, bring everyone together to talk in the middle of the court, the sort of coach on the floor kind of guy at times. But mainly for him, what's made him great is that he's hitting a ton of threes. And if he keeps hitting a ton of threes, I think that's just kind of going to make him good because he's kind of good at everything else. The one, if I'm going to be a little bit nitpicky with him, he gets so bad at the rim in his ability to play defense at the rim. He's either going to foul or just let you shoot a layup.
Okay.
On the perimeter, he's pretty good.
Okay,
but at the rim,
okay.
he just turns into a terrible defender.
I agree with you, but listen to this. In the fourth quarter this year, Damian Lee is shooting 18 for 28, which is 64% from 3.
Yikes. Wow. Yeah.
He's shooting
I think Monty's right.
64% from 3. Play this man in the fourth quarter of every game from now on.
And he is playing in the fourth quarter. How many minutes do you have his whole stats up for the fourth quarter?
129 minutes in 16 games in the fourth just the fourth quarter. That's a lot of fourth quarter minutes.
Yeah, it's a significant amount. And I think Monty had it right. I was trying to make the case recently just because of how good he was playing to start Damian Lee over Torrey Craig. But no, Monty's doing it right? Start Torrey Craig, put a big guy on their big wings, and then in the fourth quarter, blitz him with shooting as much as you possibly can with Damian Lee on the floor. And that's been working really well. And I think, Damian Lee, it's one of those moves where it's like, it seemed like nothing at the time. We're like, Damian Lee, he'll eat some minutes, I think we said. Right? He'll eat some minutes in the regular season, maybe not. I'd be surprised if he didn't play a role in the postseason for the Suns at the rate that he's playing so far. And maybe it'll fall off a cliff at some point. It's early. It's early. Although I did see a tweet from Wob. Wob? How do you say his name?
Wob.
Is it Wob?
I don't know.
His name's Rob.
Yeah, I don't care. I say Wob, but who knows?
Well, he said something like, it's almost a fourth of the season is over and the Jazz are still good. And I had to do a double take at thinking of almost a fourth of the season is over. But we're getting pretty close to that specific number. But Damian Lee's still playing really well. And the Suns kind of nailed the Damian Lee signing. They nailed, I think, the Jock Landale trade as well. And those guys are playing well above. Okogie has been okay. Okogie hit a 3 today. That's huge news.
His vibes per 36 are really good.
Damian Lee or Josh Okogie, or both?
I mean, all of them. But Josh Okogie, I will say, like Damian Lee is putting up good actual basketball stats. Same with Jock Landale. Josh Okogie, the best I can give him right now is vibes. The vibes are good, and the defensive highlights are legitimately awesome. But yeah. The stats aren't there yet for Josh Okogie. That's okay. I still enjoy watching Josh Okogie play basketball for the most part. To your point, he did make a sidestep, step back 3.
The most difficult 3 he's taken for the Suns so far was the first 3 he made.
Yeah, and I am not anticipating many more like that to go in for Josh Okogie, but we'll see.
I want to talk about the trade targets that the Suns have been linked to by Shams and Stein and whoever else was in on, Amico jumping in there at the end, trying to reiterate reports. But I just want to quickly mention the Suns also lost to the Jazz. And I'll just say this. I personally just kept waiting for the Jazz to start losing, and they just keep winning. Are they just good? I mean,
They're good.
They're just good, right? And they're kind of fun to watch. I actually, even
Now
though
you're
they were
going
beating
too
the
far.
Suns, it was kind of fun. It's hard to, it's just a bunch of guys who play solid basketball and they move the ball well. They shoot really well. Lauri Markkanen made like an unbelievable shot against the Suns, and he makes pretty difficult looking shots pretty regularly. And yeah, they're just going to keep winning. Yeah, I mean, we thought they were going to be terrible, but at this point, I've seen them potentially linked to John Collins.
Yeah.
Like maybe they'll make a trade to get even better this year.
Lauri Markkanen truly has been incredible in every sense of the word. I mean, he's
the best player on a top team in the Western Conference.
Yes. Now, will they remain a top team in the Western Conference? I'm not sure. I'm still expecting some regression, of course. But yeah, his shot making, I think, was on display for every single Suns fan the other night who maybe didn't believe in what he was doing this season. It's real. It's absolutely real what he's capable of doing on the offensive end. And it's going to be interesting to see them in a playoff setting with Lauri Markkanen as number one. If they, assuming that they don't make a trade to bring in someone better, we're going to see if he can sustain it. But for now, it looks
great.
He's
a 6'11" small forward, power forward center. Like he really is that, and he can create his own shot at that size, and that becomes really valuable in the playoffs if you have the right kind of shot and the confidence to take it, which he appears to have. Big shot creators are the most valuable thing in the playoffs, and they have one of those. And, I remember Zach Lowe mentioning before the season, Lauri Markkanen could probably be had with a first-round pick. And, if that was true and nobody did it, I bet they're all regretting it right now. Because he would be great, basically. I mean, he'd be amazing on the Suns right now. But basically every team could probably use a guy like him.
Let the lesson be learned. It's okay to be a little bold sometimes. To have visions. You know what? I'm not going to do it. Just go into the trade candidates. I don't have to give my spiel.
I want to talk. Let's try and collectively rank the guys that have been associated with the Suns, because this is all this week, and you and I, we talked about it at certain points of the playback, but a lot more people listen to this, so we should really get into what these guys, who these guys are, and how we feel about them. I think Shams Charania probably had the most detailed version of the report. Mark Stein this morning, we're recording on Sunday once again, also posted a report regarding the Suns, but no new names in there, although he did have a Gambo quote about John Collins. But let's just quickly, I'll just mention all the names that have been associated with the Suns. Let's go through each one individually. We'll talk about how likely each one is and also how we feel about each one of those players so far. But Kyle Kuzma, Harrison Barnes, Eric Gordon, Kenyon Martin Jr., John Collins, and this one I just threw in for you, Sam, Julius Randle. He has not actually been linked to the Suns yet. Supposedly the Knicks are interested in Jay Crowder. And then there was a report today that he's still kind of available, Julius Randle.
Is that the Amico report, or did someone legitimate say that?
The one I sent to you this morning. Let me access it right now. I think it was Amico. Let me double check.
Well,
the interesting thing about the report,
there
by
goes
the way,
that. No.
the interesting thing about the report was that his value as a trade candidate has gone up as it relates to what the Knicks could get for him, and that was before. that was before this Suns game. So I imagine it's like the stock market. It goes up and down with every game.
Yeah, his value has gone down again.
Sean Devaney? Is that how you say his name?
Yeah.
Deveney?
Yeah, sure.
You know him. Yeah. He's not, I wouldn't say he's not Shams, he's not Woj or anything, but he's not. He seems to be attempting to be legit.
Buy stock now. We should start a stock exchange where we trade shares of
reporters,
trade shares of NBA reporters, who want to ascend to the spotlight.
I mean, if we actually kept track of how many of their reports ended up being accurate or inaccurate, that would be kind of fascinating to do. But let's talk about each one of them. I think let's start with Kyle Kuzma. I think he's the one that has gotten the most traction with Suns fans, and I think for a pretty good reason. Now, actually, let me just quickly say, it seems like the Kings are not going to trade Harrison Barnes, and they're pretty good right now. Supposedly, Mike Brown really likes him as a veteran presence on their team, and they're going to try to remain good throughout the season. So although I like him a lot as a trade target, I think you and I could probably not really talk about him unless you have something specific you want to say about Barnes. Seems like they're not going to trade him.
What's Sacramento's record right now? They're 8-6.
They're pretty close to 500, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm still skeptical. They're 26th in defensive rating. Look, I'm still skeptical. I've heard the same reports that they like Harrison Barnes. They want to keep him as a veteran. They think they're good, yada, yada, yada. I'd give it 10 more games on the Sacramento Kings. That's all I'm going to say on that.
I like it.
Yeah, but
okay, so
other
we'll
than
say
that,
maybe we'll talk about him 10 games from now again.
Yeah, sure.
We'll see if Jay Crowder is still on the team at that point. And then we'll talk about the other guys individually. But Kyle Kuzma, I think, maybe is the most is that the most interesting trade candidate out of these guys for you?
Yes.
I think he is for me as well. What do you like about him?
Man, what do I like about Kyle Kuzma? I mean, he's kind of a veteran at this point, which feels
he's a champion.
Which feels weird to say.
Is that weird to say too?
But
he's a champion.
Yeah, he's a champion in the prime of his career. Who doesn't have like too startling of an injury history, maybe compared to like, some other guys who are coming up, and, is just a bucket getter, which is something that the Suns need at this point. I was actually surprised to see, by the way, because I was so sure that Kyle Kuzma, I knew he was averaging around 18 points per game. And before I looked this up, I was so sure. I was like, that has to be a career high. It's actually not a career high. Because I forget that in his second season, back when the Lakers sucked, he averaged 18.7.
When he was untouchable.
Back when he was untouchable. With that being said, now he is certainly not untouchable. He is averaging 18.5, so the second best scoring season of his career, alongside 8.1 rebounds and 3.3 assists per game. There are absolutely flaws in Kyle Kuzma's game. We can get into those. But I think from a talent standpoint, he may be the most talented player on this list at this point, which is shows how far he's come.
The thing that I'll talk about his offense in a second, but the thing that I think makes him the most intriguing to me, outside of Harrison Barnes, who I just think would be the best fit out of these guys, the thing that makes him the most intriguing for me is out of the guys that we mentioned, Kuzma, let's just strike Barnes, so Kuzma, Gordon, KJ, Collins, and Randall, he's the most two-way of those guys, in that I think he could actually be really good on defense for the Suns. I think he would be a successful defender for the Suns. I think he would work really well within the Suns system. I think he could take some of the bigger guys that Mikal Bridges might struggle to handle. I'm not saying he's going to be a great defender, but I don't think he would be harmful to you defensively in the way that John Collins or Julius Randle probably would be. On the other side of that, offensively, he's having a bad shooting year. And he's done that before. In fact, it's actually weird if you look at his 2 18.5-ish points seasons that he's had. They're like identical in that 30% from three is what he shot in 18-19, that season you referenced, and that's also what he's shooting so far this season. His effective field goal percentage in 18-19 was 51.5. It's 51.4 this season. But he's gotten really great at rebounding in a development that I don't think I ever anticipated. He's averaging over 8 rebounds per game this season. And what I think is kind of interesting about him, he'll attack the rim. He's got pretty good ball handling. He's not really a great passer, but I think if you start to put him in the Suns system, a lot of the things that he struggles with, including shooting, I think will get a little bit better because the Suns are so good at getting guys open and finding guys in the position where they're most effective. So I think those things would get better. But like his ability to attack the rim, get to the free throw line, and also attack the boards brings a different look than Cameron Johnson when Cameron Johnson is healthy. And I think if you trade for Kyle Kuzma, you have to find a way to convince him to be okay with coming off the bench and being like the best player off the bench for the Suns once Cameron Johnson is healthy. because I don't think he's as good of a fit with the starters as Cameron Johnson would be. But I just think, it just kind of works if you can figure that out for him.
Yeah, it's going to be
But
tough,
I also think he's probably the most expensive of these guys when it comes to trading, right?
Yes, for sure. He's one of the most expensive, if not the most expensive. The bench thing is going to be tough. And if we have to have this conversation about each and every one of these guys, it's going to limit the types of options, at least at the forward position, that the Suns can really lock themselves into because... Yeah, how many of these guys are arguably better than Cam Johnson, or at least are kind of really, really, really on the level of Cam Johnson? Maybe not necessarily the most optimized with the Suns starters, but Kyle Kuzma is a pretty damn talented basketball player, and at this stage in his career, I don't know his level of interest in coming off the bench, even if it's for a contender. That's going to be an issue.
Yeah, maybe you're right. I wouldn't want to. I'll give him the benefit of the doubt on that one, just because the Suns have been so good, and maybe that matters to somebody like Kyle Kuzma in comparison to playing on the Wizards. Is he a free agent after this year?
I think he's got one. I thought he had one left. He's got a player option for 13, which he's definitely declining.
Yeah, so maybe that would be an issue, right? Just based on contract situation. Alone. His contract was absurdly good. I think when they signed it, that's really good contract for that kind of player. The Suns would, in order to get Kyle Kuzma, his salary is more than Jay Crowder. They'd have to figure out how to include somebody else or do some sort of 3-team trade to try to get him and probably include a pick, maybe one that's further in the future than this current offseason for the Suns, and I think maybe that makes him slightly less likely. I do believe the Suns are interested in him just based on the fact that Gambo refused to rule it out, and it's been reported by Shams Charania. I think that's enough.
Could always bench Chris Paul if we're ready for that conversation.
Well, if you do that, you're playing campaign.
No,
because campaign's been really good, man.
You could. No, I'm saying go point book. Go point book with the 3 wings. The 3 7
in the playoffs, that's a fascinating.
The 3
one, right?
7-foot wingspans with Bridges, Cam Johnson, and Kyle Kuzma around point book, Ayton in the middle, and then I guess Chris Paul and Campaign coming off the bench to run the offense.
I wonder if Kuzma could play.
That would be bizarre.
Center.
He can
too.
He can. He can
because he can rebound like
a
center.
No, he can play small ball 5. That's a great point too.
All right, next guy. We like Kuzma. Right now, I would say he's ranked number 1 on this list. Eric Gordon, and we can talk both about Eric Gordon and Kenyon Martin Jr. as potential candidates for the Suns because they're both on the Rockets. And if you believe some of the rumors that were out there, the Suns were potentially already talking about a trade with the Rockets and the Bucks in order to send Jay Crowder to the Bucks and potentially both of these guys to the Suns. I'll just say it now. I mentioned it on a different podcast too, but if you hear about a trade with the Suns because the Suns are so tight-lipped, it probably means it's already dead and they're working on something else. So, take that how you will. Do we have to have the Eric Gordon conversation? We've had it before. 20, 30 times now at this point?
I don't think we need to have the Eric Gordon conversation about who he is as a player. I think everyone knows who Eric Gordon is as a player. He would help the Suns, I don't really know what else to say. I guess it's maybe the fact that we have to have this whole Cam Johnson. Well, if Cam Johnson has to start when he comes back, maybe it is just easier to go out and get another guard. In which case, I can see why Eric Gordon is so tantalizing to the Suns front office. That would be it. That would be my only analysis on Eric Gordon.
Yeah, I mean he makes sense. I think that his ability to play 2 or 3 is probably something the Suns like, in that they love Landry Shamet, so they're not taking Landry Shamet's minutes, but also he could potentially play minutes with both Chris Paul and Devin Booker, at least in the regular season. I think there are reasons to be slightly worried about that, depending on the matchup as far as the playoffs go. When it comes to Eric Gordon, and I think the reason that Kenyon Martin Jr. comes up as another player here is for the Suns to make a trade to send out enough salary to get Eric Gordon, they would have to trade 2 players, and they probably would want 2 players back. So you're looking at Eric Gordon, you're looking at the guys at the bottom of their salary, which for them is, you could say Ty Washington, you could say Garrison Matthews, you could say Kenyon Martin Jr. Those are the only real players that you're talking about. Ty Washington, I think, is a rookie who's playing in the G League. Maybe Josh Christopher, I guess you could say. But the Suns would want probably another one of those guys, sending 2, getting 2 back when it comes to that. And Kenyon Martin Jr. has been in multiple reports for the Suns, and I think you could see why. He's a strong wing that's 6'6", plays with his head down towards the rim. Not a great shooter, but a pretty good defender. And I think for the Suns system, he would probably benefit from playing in a team like the Suns.
Yeah, Kenyon Martin Jr. is interesting because he's by far the least talented player on this entire list, to be honest.
Yeah.
But that's okay because A, because he's 22 years old, and B, because he's on that kind of like small rookie contract, the type of contract that you just need to take when you're being a little bit flexible in terms of matching salaries. So yeah, he's a totally James Jones applicable plug and play wing who, as you said, can put his head down and drive, is not like the most physically gifted, but can definitely defend multiple positions as well. So yeah, I mean, he fits into any system. He's copy and paste wing guy. That would make sense. It would be fine.
22 years old, too, I think, would be the youngest player on the Suns. And
yeah,
I think
maybe younger than Dwayne Washington. I don't even know how old Dwayne Washington is.
Yeah, they're probably pretty close, I would guess, in age. And I think it would be nice. It would just be kind of fun to have a young guy that has like upside on the Suns. He
is younger than Dwayne by a handful of months.
Yeah. So it'd be interesting to see if the Suns could pull that off. I think if you're the Rockets, you probably want to hold on to Kenyon Martin Jr. and try to throw somebody else in there instead of him. If you can figure out a way to do that, since they are a young team, they probably want to hold on to young guys and see what they have with them. You mentioned Kenyon Martin Jr. as the worst player on this list. Sorry to say it like that, but he is like a throw-in, right? He would be like, we want that guy too. That's how the Suns would look at it. We're getting Gordon, but we also want 100%. Kenyon Martin Jr. There's no trade for Jay Crowder where they just get Kenyon Martin Jr.
Kenyon Martin's like, you look at him and you're like, oh, cool. We also got a guy who can play 10 or 15 minutes in our rotation and not fuck up. That is, I don't want to, understate the importance of that. That's a very important thing to have. But as the centerpiece of a trade for Jay Crowder, that would be really underwhelming, So it's not that he's bad by any means.
Now, John Collins is another player that I think we could pretty confidently say that the Suns are not interested in. It was part of the original Shams report that the Suns like him as a player but don't like his salary, although he worded it worse than I just did. But then Gambo came out afterwards and said there's no truth to the report that the Suns are interested in John Collins. They're not interested at all. Are you interested in John Collins at all? I think you'd have to send out more, probably maybe multiple picks. I'm not sure what the Hawks would actually want for somebody like Collins.
This one is tough in the wake of the Lauri Markkanen trade because John Collins is the other guy who's been on the trade block for like 5 years straight, just like Lauri was. And I didn't believe in Lauri. And now he's a star. And who knows? Who's to say that John Collins isn't the next guy who just needs a change of scenery and he's going to...
You're saying Trey's the problem? Is that what you're saying?
I'm not saying Trey's the problem. I'm saying that I'm thinking weirdly and possibly incorrectly about John Collins now, just in a way that I didn't think about him before. Like I'm kind of lending him this credibility that I didn't if you had asked me this question 6 months or 12 months ago. On the other hand, I look at John Collins, the basketball player, and I don't see a particularly great fit with just who the Suns are as a basketball team. He's not a spacer. He's just not.
He's not a spacer and a bad defender.
Yeah, and I think you need to be at the very least very good at one of those two things in order to fit on this team in a playoff setting. Otherwise, I'm not sure you're going to be viable as like one of the 7 best players who are going to log a lot of minutes in a playoff series against really good teams. So that's the difficult thing about John Collins for me. He needs to take a big leap defensively that we've never seen, or at the very least be like a 36% three-point shooter who's taken 5 of them a game. And we've never seen that either. So it's just tough.
I'm kind of out on him for the Suns. I think that there is potentially a scenario for him where he could find a team where he could be more effective. But I do think that when you're a contender, as the Suns are trying to be, it's really difficult to be a player that is a power forward who is like a pick and roll power forward who can't play center. And it does not really play great defense, because once you get into the playoffs, you need somebody like John Collins to guard really good players. And first of all, that's going to be really tough. But the other side of that is the Suns have DeAndre Ayton as currently constructed. And that means that those two guys are going to try to eat in the same place on the floor. And for the Suns, it just doesn't really work. And like you said, if he could shoot a lot better, that'd be another thing. If he's an excellent defender, I think you can get away with not having the floor spacing and find ways to use him differently to score. But I think there's a scenario with John Collins where if he was on the Suns, he could score 20 to 25 points a night and the Suns would be worse. And maybe that's hard for some people to believe, but I do kind of feel that way about him.
It shouldn't be that hard to believe for fans of the team that employed Amari Stoudemire for 10 years straight. Like John Collins he's a very watered down version. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to disrespect Amari's name, but
Amari could play center pretty effectively. I mean, yes, defensively it was tough.
Yeah, he blocked Tim Duncan once in the playoffs. I saw it, but it's, John Collins is he's kind of drawn that Amari comparison for a long time, just in terms of that's not a word, but in terms of archetypes, that's kind of who he is. And yeah, it's just you can see how teams like that would be really, really, really good on offense and worse on defense. And ultimately, where is that going to get you?
I think the Suns as a team might be worse on offense too, though, than comparing to just having Cameron Johnson in that starting.
Then if they just had,
because the team works better, right? As a team,
I agree with that. Compared to the team that they are right now on offense,
that's true.
Without Cam Johnson, they would be much, much better. But
yeah, no, that's a good point. That is a good point. And, it is a scenario, too, with John Collins where maybe it is the case, like you said, that a new situation, a new scenario with him will bring out the stuff that's missing right now. But when you're a team that's in the position that the Suns are in, it's hard to take that gamble. I think if you're a team the Kings, for example, or even the Jazz is another team that we talked about where they're still sort of thinking, is this real? Are we actually good? Or are we going to be good this season? Is this real? Or maybe even a team like Charlotte, where you just need an infusion of another type of player that can play relatively well. Take that risk. There's not a lot that you're going to lose from it. I think for the Suns, you lose a little bit more if that doesn't work out, not to mention the huge salary attached to him at the end of that. I know that's all this to say that the Suns appear to not be interested in him. And I think that's probably, I guess we're both agreeing that that's probably the right choice.
Yeah, I don't think there's a high likelihood of this happening, and I'm not worried about it either way. Bottom line. Yeah.
And this one's for you. No jokes. How interested are you in Julius Randle at this point?
How many fucking times do I have to say it?
You're still really in.
I'm in. I don't care how he played tonight. Why should I care? No, but really, why should I care?
I think people have been saying he's really bad, dude. I haven't watched enough of the Knicks to really know. People have been really saying his defense has been bad this year.
I've seen the lowlights. They're really bad. Knicks fans are also really dramatic. Everything you see from Knicks fans, you have to kind of pull back 4 or 5 layers from it.
Yeah. As opposed to Suns fans who are always level-headed.
Yeah, I mean, we're really good at that.
Yeah.
No, but seriously, Knicks fans, I love them. I at least like them. I don't know if I love them.
I like some of the guys who cover the team.
Absolutely. They have actually some pretty good media. But they're very dramatic. It's really hard to try to be a star player in New York. And maybe Julius just needs some lights that aren't so bright. And I know they wouldn't be. I know we're competing for a championship over here, so they might feel bright to us. But trust me, compared to what's going on in New York, this is nothing. Nothing.
This was the first week in the Jay Crowder saga where I thought, are we actually close to a trade here? As the week comes to an end, as this next week starts, not really sure that we are. I'll be honest, I'm not sure that we are. There was credible rumblings that a trade was close, but that appears to not be the case right now. If something does happen in the near future, we'll be ready, right, Sam? We'll be ready to talk about that.
Oh, I suppose we will.
And it'll be interesting to see, once again, 2 important dates to remember. December 15th, a lot of players who were recently signed can be traded December 15th. Just want to point out, it's not that far away at this point. Yeah, maybe it's like 10, 12 games away if we're talking about from a Suns calendar perspective. But look, November's coming to an end pretty soon here, and December 15th is not that far away. And for the Suns to wait wouldn't be a huge surprise to me, but if they can find a deal that makes sense for them, they should just pull the trigger. The other date, January 15th, certain other players can be traded that day. I know some Suns fans are thinking about one player in particular, in DeAndre Ayton. That's not why I bring up that date. There's other players besides him that become available to be traded that day as well.
Another thing I've been thinking about, like Cam Johnson has been out for 2 full weeks now.
Yeah, we're not that far away, yeah.
We could kind of wait it out. I mean, I wouldn't necessarily
he could play
recommend
Christmas
it.
Day.
Yeah, I mean, he could be back by the new year. And that's not me saying anything based on inside information. It's just based on the general 4 to 6 week timeline that we heard. He could be back by the new year. It's not that far away.
Let's just quickly mention the games that are coming up this week. Lakers, who have won 2 in a row, I think, right now, as of recording this. Tuesday on TNT, can the Suns keep the streak alive against the Lakers? I believe, if I'm not mistaken, the Lakers have yet to beat the Suns since they faced each other in the playoffs. LeBron James, currently injured, could be playing as early as Tuesday. We'll see if he ends up playing that game. They've been pretty bad this year. Looking forward to that game, Sam?
Absolutely. That's like becoming some sort of Greek tragedy tale at this point, the amount of games that the Lakers have lost in a row. The tale of Andre Drummond, I think we'll call it, if you will. The fact that it was him, right? He was the one who was in that picture mimicking LeBron in the back down on Jay Crowder. And it just feels like such a classically tragic tale of hubris, that Andre Drummond would do that, and then his punishment from the basketball gods would be that the Los Angeles Lakers would never win a basketball game again against this team. So we'll put that to the test. That should be fun.
That'll be interesting. Pistons on Friday. The Suns could get an easy win against them. The Pistons have not been great, but who knows? The Suns have actually played, I would say the Suns have played well against good teams and then played kind of bad against bad teams at times. So we'll see what ends up happening in the Pistons game, and then there's a rematch against the Jazz. Both these games, Pistons and Jazz, are coming after Thanksgiving.
No Cade for the Pistons game now, right? Didn't he just go down?
Oh, that's right. Yeah, that is
so.
Right.
That sucks for them.
Speaking of recent injuries, Damian Lillard too is going to be out. For a little bit.
Yeah,
and they've been playing really well, so it's going to be interesting. It's nice to see. We talked about it. We're always a little bit worried with Devin Booker carrying the load that he's been carrying. It was nice to see him play a game where he played, I think, less than 30 minutes for the first time in a long time, and hopefully he can remain healthy. We don't have a playback game currently scheduled, but if we change that, we will let you know. We'd like to do one this week. Thanksgiving, of course, is coming up. Have a great Thanksgiving, everyone listening to this. If you'd like to join us on our playback, you can join us at any time. I'm sorry, Patreon. You can join us at any time. Patreon.com/TheTimeline. Extra episodes every week and access to our Discord. Got anything else for the people, Sam?
Just to have a wonderful Thanksgiving. If you are international, I guess don't. But be grateful.
Have a bad Thanksgiving.
Be grateful for something, you ungrateful Australian fucks, or wherever you're listening from. So thank you, everyone. We'll talk to you soon.
For over a century, Johnny Walker has shared its bold spirit with the game of golf. Now, crafted with Devereaux Golf, Johnny Walker introduces the Johnny Walker Blue Label-inspired Sunday Golf Bag, elevating the game with sleek design, Blue Label hues, and refined gold accents. Celebrate your hole-in-one with a premium Sunday bag crafted by Devereaux Golf. Submit proof of your achievement to JohnnyWalker.com/blue-in-1. Please drink responsibly.